Hello, everybody, and welcome to What's the Story podcast. This is WTS 257. My name is Danny Murray.
And I'm Graham Merrigan. How are you, Danny?
I am in spiffing form, Graham.
Excellent.
I'm doing good. Yeah, doing good. Top out of the world and all that crack. How about you, my friend?
Yeah, no, I'm in good form. Yeah, thank you.
Excellent. I've had a busy week, but sure, look, isn't that what life is like?
You have 4,600 work emails, is it?
Yeah, well, more, but when I was talking to you, that was the number that was unread in my inbox. Man in demand. I take one day off, Graham, and the whole place goes to shit.
I believe it went to 0 in 7 seconds.
Are you insinuating I had my finger on the delete button for quite some time? Not at all.
Control Alt Delete. Thank you.
If anyone who I work with emailed me in 2014, I'm due to get back to you in 2023. So just hold tight.
When you will be a married man.
I will indeed. Yeah, that's right. That's coming up quickly. But sure, look, people have heard me waffling about that for a while, so we'll give the wedding talk a break this week. But I do, Graham, want to talk to you about a very, very serious matter.
Oh?
You had a 90s dinner, and I just thought it sounded wonderful.
A 90s dinner. This evening I had chicken, chips, and peas, mushy peas.
Real man, that is...
Loads of salt on the chips and loads of ketchup.
Oh, yeah. Now, here's... I don't know if we've ever talked about this before. What variety of ketchup is in the American household?
There's only one variety of ketchup.
Oh, we're gonna have a fall now. I can sense this.
There's only one acceptable brand.
I can sense this is going the wrong way.
And it's Heinz.
Oh, you're a fucking... get out.
Don't tell me you're a chef.
I am a chef, man, through and through.
Chef brown sauce, that's all I'll have.
No,
Chef ketchup is just like vinegar.
I like the zest, the zinginess in it.
No, it's vinegar, man.
It's not.
Chef ketchup is not for me.
You give me a bag of chipper chips of salt and vinegar and a bit of chef ketchup.
No.
And, oh my word.
I'd rather the big old industrial size KVI ketchups than that.
Do you remember the big, huge KVI? Oh my god,
yeah.
That cheap ketchup was unreal, man. Do you remember you got like a little plastic tray of chips and Lansdowne Road, and it'd stick a load of that ketchup on it?
Yeah.
And it'd feel like it was minus 20 degrees, but holding them chips, you are warm and happy. What?
And you didn't want you would cause a World War III if your ma attempted to get that ketchup in on a Friday from the shop.
There'd be murders. There would be absolutely murder. There would, yeah, absolutely. It's weird. A lot of people are Heinz ketchup, and I feel like they're just Heinz because their granny was Heinz and their ma was Heinz.
No, Heinz. I just think
it's an inferior. It's an inferior condiment.
No, it's not. No, you don't know what you're saying now. To be honest,
I'm perfectly aware of what I'm saying. Thank you.
I think that the chef ketchup is just far too vinegary, and it's just not for me. I do like the chef. I like the chef brown sauce on a ham and cheddar Sambo.
I do like now. I've a soft spot for YR brown sauce. My dad is a chef brown sauce man. Well, he was. He wouldn't.
I always used to think that was called JR.
No, YR. But me granny was a YR woman. My mother is a YR woman. So I've got mongrel blood in me because I'll go for either one of them. Do you know what I mean? But
love it.
What mayonnaise is in the American fridge?
Hellman's.
Hellman's is really the staple, isn't it? I'm suspicious of people who opt for a different variety of mayonnaise.
Yeah, I wouldn't even attempt to go to another variety.
But that said,
do you know what? One of my good friends, Robert, put me on Christmas Eve. I went down to his house. He texted me at about 5 and said, "Do you want to come down for some ham sandwiches?"
Rob sounds like the type man I want to be friends with as well now.
Yeah, so I went down about 7 o'clock Christmas Eve. I had a fresh ham, only out of the oven, on white Brennan's bread. And do you know what condiment he had?
Oh, here we go. I'm intrigued.
And the condiment was stunning. The sandwich was accompanied by potato, cheese, and onion on Christmas Eve.
A fantastic choice. And
the condiment was Dun's Simply Best range of gherkin mustard relish.
Oh, wow.
Daniel, it was a taste sensation.
Well,
I
I
had
am
it.
intrigued now.
Yeah, oh man, the mustard gherkin relish. Everyone that's listening to this, go out to Dunn's, go to their
Yeah.
Simply Best range, and get the mustard gherkin relish if you're that way inclined for a good condiment. And
Mustard
the
gherkin
sandwich
relish.
was sensational. And I'll
I
never forget that Christmas Eve now.
a mustard gherkin. I am going to. I'm gonna. I'm a fan of Dunn's, and I'm a fan of their products.
Yeah.
I in fact, they do a honey mustard whiskey glaze, which I have used on hams in the past. Didn't use it this year now, but I have used it on hams in the past, and it was
Right.
sensational.
Lovely.
But
Sounds delicious.
that relish sounds right up my street. Tell you what Dunn's do actually. They do sausage rolls, but they're black pudding and pork sausage rolls.
Sausage rolls
And
are for me now, to be
yeah,
honest.
I know. Just you pop them in the oven for 10 minutes, and they're fucking hell. They're good. Poppy seeds and all on them, puff pastry.
I had me mum and dad's friends. They were over a couple of weeks ago, and my mum had the cheese board out, and I had them. I put the gherkin and mustard relish
Yeah.
on crackers, and they're sensational, man. Sensational.
You're a fan of a cheese. Are you a fan of a charcuterie board, or is it just strictly cheese you go for?
I'm not a fan of the cheese board at all. My mum just had it out, and I says to me dad's friend Dookie, I know he likes mustard, so I
Yeah.
said, Dookie, I'm gonna give you a cracker here. I'm gonna give you the best condiment of all time on this cracker, and you're gonna love it. And he
Yeah.
put it into his mouth, and he goes, "It's fucking massive."
That's. Would you put mustard on a burger if you're making a fancy burger, shall we say?
Yeah, I would, yeah.
Yeah, same. And you mustard on your hot dog if you're getting a hot dog as well.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of that. Do you know the French's yellow mustard?
Oh, yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's great stuff.
Remember Palm Beach used to do sensational hot dogs when we were kids?
I never got a hot. You've said this to me in the past. I've never had a hot dog from Palm Beach and Ballybrook.
Yeah, I haven't had one in years now, but I remember as a late teenager, I used to get them quite a bit up in Palm Beach, and they were lovely.
I've taken to getting.
Shippers don't do anything for me though anymore.
I'd have to be in a certain mood, and it's mostly just I want a big salt and vinegar infested bag of chips.
Yeah, vinegar's not for me.
You put me on to because you quite enjoy a hot dog. If you're in Five Guys or something, you might get a hot dog.
Well, actually, Five Guys hot dog is sensational.
Yeah.
And when I was in Luxembourg, the last hot dog I had was in Luxembourg with our friend Ross Sambra, and we went.
I'm married man now. Congratulations, Ross. We're probably well overdue in saying that to you.
Yeah, congratulations on being married and baby Alex.
And baby Alex, of course.
He was christened last Saturday as well, actually, by the way.
Oh, geez, congratulations everywhere to the Zambra household. Fucking hell.
That was the last time. Did I get a hot dog on that trip, actually? Actually, I can't remember.
Look, for the sake of the story, you did. Go on.
For the sake of the story, you did. And for the sake of the story, Five Guys hot dogs are really good hot dogs.
So,
anybody want to tell me about where to get a good hot dog, let me know.
Well, this is what I was going to say to you. So over the Christmas, I made me annual pilgrimage back to the Borough, right? Because I won't let a Christmas pass without having Hicks in my fridge and then put it on the grill and eat it because I love Hicks, right?
Yeah.
Outside of Hicks at Dunleary, they've started to do like just rolls. I assume it was during lockdown and all that. They cooked them there in front of you and everything.
Yeah.
What I learned that they do bratwurst and brockwurst. I said, oh, here, listen, Rosemary. Stick a few of them on a bag for me. So I did. And I done them, and I fucking tell you, and I done them hot dog style. Mero.
Very nice.
Oh my, I was nearly planning a drive back up to Dunleary, man.
So you haven't had them there? You haven't had them since then?
No, I haven't had them since. I haven't, and I think you couldn't. They're very decadent. Do you know what I mean? They're like, but mother of God, if you like a hot dog and you're into your bratwurst or your brockwurst, either variety, do you take to the German stuff at all?
I like
a very serious conversation. What are you laughing at?
The way you put it, you take the German stuff at all. I just wasn't expecting you to say that. Oh God. The bratwurst down in the People's Park of a Sunday, the farmers market.
Oh yes,
he has it on a big fresh bread bun, with fried onions, mustard, and ketchup. He does. He asks, "Do you want peppers?" But peppers don't belong in a hot dog for me.
I'd agree with you there. I think that's taking it a step too far. Fried onions, yes, absolutely. Ketchup, mustard, absolutely. Of an occasion, little bacon bits, crispy bacon bits, I'd be partial to that.
Do you know what I had recently with Pat Flynn?
Hello, Pat. Yeah, go on.
The Wow Burger.
Oh, fucking hell, I love Wow Burger.
Haven't had one since I was with you. And what I got on it was grilled onions.
Yeah.
Grilled mushrooms.
Yeah.
Cheese, bacon, ketchup, mustard, and lettuce. And it was fucking sensational. Wow Burger's a good burger.
It is a good burger, man. It is a good. There's only the downs. Well, there's many downsides of living in Laois, and anybody who listens to this podcast and lives in Laois, if you don't agree with me, well, look. But one of the downsides, there's only 2 good burger places, and one of them is Eddie Rockets. So in truth, there's only 1 good burger place down here.
Eddie Rockets do a great burger.
They do. In fairness, they do.
The cheesy chicken fillet burger is a taste sensation.
Oh my god, the Eddie Rockets chicken tenders. Oh my god, man!
I love their Cajun sauce.
Oh, stop you can buy that in Super Value now.
I know, yeah,
and the garlic sauce, and that makes me happy because Eddie Rockets used to. They won't do it anymore because they're shitbags. They used to do where you could mix the garlic and the Cajun sauce, and it is fucking unbelievable.
I didn't know you could do that.
Oh,
I didn't know you could get that.
They won't do it anymore, but back in the day, because they used to do a thing called the Cajun bacon patty melt. And that was the sauce. And oh my fucking word, Graham.
Do you like their breaded mushrooms?
I'm a fan of any sort of breaded garlicky mushroom situation.
Have you ever had here? Excuse me.
Come on.
Excuse me.
The talk about food, man. It's a talk about food.
Me and Rob, occasionally, we haven't been for a while, but Bits and Pizzas in Dún Laoghaire. And their starter, you won't get a starter like it. It's sensational. It's garlic, cheese, mushrooms. And they're in this kind of steel plate. And they're like it's like a little mushroom plate. There's 4 mushrooms.
Yeah.
Not breaded, nothing, just 4 mushrooms, mozzarella and Parmesan cheese, and loads of garlic juice. They are unbelievable. I haven't had that in ages, and I'm gonna go. Actually, I'm gonna go to Bits and Pizzas
and get the coleslaw as well. The Bits and Pieces. Oh my word, man! This is like we've spent about 10 minutes just talking about food here.
Yeah,
we've both had our dinner this evening.
Yeah, I know we're starving again.
I will on one final food question for now. And lads, tweet us at WTS Pod if you've agreed or disagreed with anything from the Chef versus Heinz battle all the way through to.
Or any recommendations would be great.
Any condiment recommendation. Gary Mackle gave us a condiment there. I think it was maybe 2 years ago at this point. It was pre-lockdown, so it's a good while ago. It was a Branston pickle condiment, a relish type thing.
That's right.
Oh, it was stunning. Yeah. Absolutely stunning. So, but yeah, any condiments at all. We're big fans of condiments on this show. So do put the recommendations into us. But Graham, if you were of an Asian takeaway, do you venture away from anywhere else in the subcontinent of Southeast Asia? Do you venture away from China and do you go into the other food type? You've been to plenty of places in that part of the world. Is there a particular type of Asian food you'd go for?
I had a Asian dish last night from Jep.
Yes, what did you get?
From Jep.
Yeah, go on, what did you get?
Is it Dieppe or Jep or whatever?
I would say Dieppe, but I mean I'm not here to.
Yep. I had Thai chicken red curry with,
oh yes, red curry.
Yeah. But you know what's sensational from Dieppe as well? They have a basil and chili beef. Oh my god, it is sensational. Jesus. It's sensational.
My god almighty. A Thai red curry.
Yeah. You know, I'm obsessed with sushi lately, actually.
I can't take the sushi at all. I can't. Cube's mad for the sushi. And whenever she gets it, I get a Thai red curry because the place that we get sushi from happens to do a wonderful Thai red curry.
Lovely. Have you had so she gets sushi from a place that you should try their Japanese chicken katsu curry.
I fucking love a katsu curry.
Oh, it's amazing.
Oh my word, I love a katsu curry,
It's
man.
amazing. I love prawn tempura as well from the Japanese.
I can't take the prawns, but I do like tempura batter in general.
Oh yeah,
So
it's stunning. But Dunn's Cornels Court have a sensational new fresh sushi place where they prepare the
oh
sushi
wow.
there and then, and they just put it on the shelf. And I go up there. I'm actually going to go up in the morning and get
Sorry,
some
did
lunch.
Dunn's Cornels Court have a sushi bar now?
Yeah, yeah.
The
Dunn's Cornels Court is sensational.
the
I
boom
love
is
it.
back.
The boom
The
is back.
the boom is back. Getting a sushi out here, and it's
Yeah,
not a pre-packaged thing. That is
it's like their artisan area in Duns
yeah,
where they have the meats and the cheese and the
yeah.
pates
The
and the
butcher in there, is
bakers.
sensational.
Yeah. So their sushi up there, I get it with wasabi and soy sauce. Oh, the tuna and the salmon and the prawn. The Californian roll. Come here to me, sushi.
Yeah, that's what they get. They get the California roll and the Northern Maki, whatever that
Oh
is.
yeah, sensational.
Anyway, and look, I'm fucking lepping and everything now.
Yeah,
Jeez.
I'm gonna
Anyway,
have a whisper now and a packet of hula hoops because I've had me dinner.
yeah, I'm gonna have to go down and have a rummage downstairs and see what there is because
What will you take?
I don't know what there is. There's a lot of Russian sweets down there, and I like some of them, but some of them I don't like. So I have to check the wrappers carefully to see which one I'm taking. I think there's a few packets of King in the Presto, so
Lovely.
I might go for the crisp sandwich. There's fresh bread
Lovely.
there. I'll go for it. Anyway,
Lovely.
I get enough about food. Jesus, we've had a waffle there about food. Our guest, Graham.
Our guest is Irish independent football correspondent, co-host of the League of Ireland Central podcast and contributor to Off the Ball. It's the brilliant Daniel McDonnell.
Hi lads, how are things?
Thanks for
joining
Oh,
us.
good, man. Thank you for your time, Dan. Much appreciated, mate.
No, not at all.
Been a busy week, Dan.
It has, yeah. It has. Like, I mean, we're talking we're on Wednesday evening now, and we've had 3 press conferences this week related to three days of stuff like the Euro 2028 bid on Monday, the what was the thing on Tuesday? The FEI press conference strategy launch on Tuesday, and then we had the League of Ireland launch on Wednesday. It's like, sort of a Craig David week, League of Ireland style. You know what I mean? Like really, I don't know what we've got on Thursday and Friday and Saturday and Sunday, but like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is set a pretty high bar, for what the rest of it could represent.
Well, I mean, if the Craig Davis song is starting to go, boy, you could be making love by Sunday. So let's see what happens.
Probably releasing a statement by Sunday if it's Irish football history. Yeah.
We'll go in order of things there. And you said the big bid was the first thing. What did you make of it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think sometimes you probably have to be conscious of, you can have your own personal opinion on something, and then you have like the broader issue that exists around it. And you're obviously reporting on something, but you have to report the news of the event. But also, there comes a point, and I mean, I suppose that's one of the things about reporting. Like, you have to, certain times, just report things and let people judge it. But if you have the scope, which I suppose I do quite often to do opinion, you have to sort of not let one blur the other. But I mean, I hate the bids. I hate all this nonsense. Right? It just drives me absolutely nuts, And I appreciate that. Like I'm completely, like, it's okay to be wrong and to be hypocritical sometimes, and you don't always have to wed yourself to a view and then decide. Like, that's probably one of the great problems we have in like debate and life, that you just can't change your mind sometimes. But like, I really hate the bids, but I do at the same time admit that when I was watching the Euros last summer and it was pretty good, having previously said I don't care if these 4 games come to Dublin or not, it's irrelevant. There was a part of me thinking, geez, it would be nice to go to one of these games today, And I do understand that the opinion that, like, I understand the attraction of a tournament coming to Dublin. I understand, yes, that if it was here, and I think there's a good chance this will happen, by the way, I'm sure I could probably get caught up in the buzz of it at the time, and it will like make some inspirational memories for people, and I get that, but it's just so irrelevant in the context of what Irish football needs to do at the moment. To get the big shiny bid, it's always the big bid. It's always this. It's always there's always something that they need to get onto the 6-1 news with. You know, it's always that type of like, this is the thing that, you know, I often think like the Delaney years and all that came with it, there was an element of, there's the news cycle, but what we really want is to be on, we want to be talked about on like the Sunday morning, you know, current affairs shows. Like, you know, we want Brendan O'Connor and we want sort of their panel of talking heads to start going, oh, it'd be great to have the Euros in Ireland, you know, or the World Cup in Ireland. And you know, towards the end of the Delaney years, you had the bluster of, well, you know, we got the Europa League final to Dublin and we got the, we got the underage, under 17s starting. And I mean, did any of that matter when the association was 70 million, 80 million in debt and everything was fucked, basically? You know, it's like, well, we got Porto and Braga here, you know, on the bright side. Like, so, and I think that is the fear now. I'm slightly low to compare. Like, I think it's actually, I do think genuinely there are probably people and personalities within the FAI that are trying to do things differently. But that's why I don't like this bid playbook stuff where, yes, like this is something that we can wave the green flag and get behind. I'd rather celebrate other things, even if they don't make the news, you know, getting structures right, because all the rest of it will come after, hopefully, you know, but it's always
Would this when Jonathan Hill was appointed, would this have been one of his main targets?
Well, see, the thing is, they sort of inherited it. Like, I mean, you have to remember, like, you know, when John Delaney was appointed executive vice president in that one of the great sort of deadline day moves of all time in Gibraltar, like one of his briefs in the title was to be responsible for the Euro 2020 bid as it was, or I think at the time it had already been awarded, the manager that, and the World Cup 2030 bid, you know. So that was one of his very important tasks that obviously he'd been assigned by his board, you know, the board had told him this. Yeah. And so they didn't inherit it. So the argument could be, if you want to break from the past, you say, listen, we want to get things right. We accept that there's a lot of issues that we need to sort out here. And right now, we're not going to go for a major tournament bid. We're actually going to go and focus on other priorities. We're going to I've always said, you know, I know I spoke about an underage tournament there, maybe sort of dismissively, but I would have loved to see Ireland go for, and it was talked about a sort of a hands across the border thing, you know, to go for an under-21 championships, because with the spec of the stadiums within that, it actually would be a real push to get your to sort of get the middle rank stadiums completed or brought up to a certain level and a catalyst for funding. But, you know, the under-21 tournaments don't get sort of Kildare Street excited, you know, like you don't get someone from Roscommon, some TD putting out a statement about why don't we build a stadium here. You know, they can't get behind that in the same way that a big shiny bid. Now, you know, I would have spoken to people in the last couple of days who would say, you know, that the bid actually itself isn't going to cost a huge amount of money. And that may be the case. And people would argue you can do the bid and you can get the other stuff right. But my point is, if in 5 years' time, they've got the bid and that's worked, but they've got none of the other stuff done, and then they start talking about the achievements of the last 5 years and say, well, we did bring Euro 2028 to Dublin, but, you know, you still have to piss in the dark at a load of League of Ireland grounds. You know, to me, I'd rather get that stuff sorted first and then, you know, get the bid sorted. So the fact that it was on the day of their big strategy launch, you know, the bid overshadowing that just struck me as a bit unfortunate.
Yeah, and I noticed with the launch as well, one of the targets was the FAI Cup final day exceeding 40,000, I think, by 2020.
To sell it out.
Apologies, sell it out by 2025. Is that not like counterproductive in terms of, you know, why not look for weekly League of Ireland games to be improved instead of one match per year? Like,
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And like, I was sort of tempted to rip the piss out of that until I realised that I'd written a column at some stage in the last year saying they should be aiming to sell the FAI Cup final out every year. And
It goes,
I was
it
just
goes
like,
without saying they should be anyway.
yeah, no, and like it's true. Like I think that game should be sold out every year. But you are right. Like it's a bit like, and I'm not having a go at it because it's a great initiative that they've done. But you've seen in recent years, in Croke Park, the ladies' football finals, massive crowds, and you see these sort of, this is the highest attended game in Europe, and that's lovely. That's actually an achievement. But obviously, the real success is when people are going on a more regular basis. And I always say, well, what was that, the semi-finals? And in fairness, I think that actually is improving. And you could argue that one eventually leads to the other. But I take your point. In a strategy, you probably should have, I think, something that could be measured, that it's not just, you could throw out a load of free tickets and fill the final as well. Like that can be done as well. Whereas week to week asks more consistency of you.
Did anything from the launch, Presser, did anything kind of, did you celebrate anything when it comes to League of Ireland grassroots? Was there anything to write home about?
Not especially, because like the whole thing is a bit, like, it is a bit vague, right? And I mean, there's some fluff in it, like, and there's some nonsense in it too, like, targets that, stuff about, the top 30 League of Ireland ranking by 2025 in Europe, without going into it. It's practically impossible to do that, and a lot of the more important stuff, again, without getting bogged down in it, I know it's more general audience type thing, so like it's without getting bogged down in the granular sort of detail of it. Like there's a complicated diplomatic sort of issue on the ground between the League of Ireland clubs and the schoolboy football clubs, and I do accept that no one's going to produce a strategy plan that is going to have a one-liner that says here's how we're going to fix something that has been broken for years. They're going to have to obviously consult and get people around the table and talk, but sort of listening to Jonathan Hill chatting about it, they don't have any solutions at the moment other than let's just try and get the right people around the table, which I think has always been the aspiration. But the big thing is going to be that they have an appointment coming up to appoint their new director of football, which is replacing Ruud Doctor, who was there before. And that's just a bloody important appointment. Like, they have to get that one right. And that to me is more important than any of the other stuff. Like, it's more important than Stephen Kenny's contract. Like, it's getting the right person in the director of football job, I think, that can try and bring those strands together. But the sad thing about it is someone who cares about this and covers this beat and wants things to be better and doesn't want to be talking about the same stuff in 15 years' time that I was talking about 15 years ago. But it's possible that it's almost impossible to repair some of those relationships, and the amount of damage that has been done might just leave a legacy where it takes a generation or more to get things right. But I hope and still want to believe in a part of me that they actually might be possible to, in the next couple of years, to focus minds and accept that this is really important now. Brexit has happened. We control our player production. We don't just rely on England anymore. Can we maybe get the right people around the table and find some common ground?
There was a lot of people when Rudy Doctor kind of stepped down, or there was a lot of people in the schoolboy section on Twitter rejoicing that he had left. Is there anything? Is it only the underage leagues that he left a good legacy with? And some people still argue that as well.
Oh yeah, listen. There's no agreement on what Ruud Doctor did, really. As in, I think by the time he left, anyway, I'm not sure that his list of sort of allies was very long. That even though the decision to bring in these national underage leagues, and give the responsibility to the League of Ireland clubs in that area is probably his legacy. That doesn't mean that the League of Ireland clubs felt that he did it in the right way, or that, what they've been left with. I mean, in some cases, they didn't even necessarily want some of that responsibility and the cost of having some of those teams, which isn't great either.
Yeah.
But I think the issue that there was with Rude Doctor at the end, from which I can glean from talking to people, was that actually that he wasn't great for actually maybe bringing people together to talk. Again, that there would have been people whose gripe with Rude Doctor may not have been the decisions that he made, but it might have been that they were never consulted about them. And that was the problem. And whatever they try and do with that now, it needs to be, it's a sort of a United Nations job for someone, to sort of to manage it, rather than a football guru. People talk about needing someone with a vision. Like, it's not about, to me anyway, this person, whoever it is, it's not about their style of play, or, it's actually about their people skills, probably, in dealing with factions, and the rest of it will follow, hopefully.
And as what names have been muted for that? Because I haven't heard nothing.
No, it's a good point, really. I don't. That was spoken about yesterday. The point that was in the context that it was raised was, do they need someone Irish to do it, as in someone who knows the lie of the land? I think Jonathan Hill's line was, Irish solutions for Irish problems are probably what's needed. That sometimes maybe Rude Doctor was thinking he was in Holland when he's not. Like, you're in Ireland, where it's not like it's not as structured as it might be in Holland, where you might have a population centre of 1 million people centred around maybe one club, one senior club. Like here, you could have that with 6 or 7 senior clubs, couple of hundred schoolboy clubs, some of which are very good, a powerful wing, and then the GAA and everything else that goes around it. And I think that would have been a broader criticism as well, maybe trying to, and there will be different views in this. I mean, I know you're a Shamrock Rovers fan. Stephen Bradley, for example, would have been someone who would be of the opinion the underage league sort of started younger. Other people would say you don't need to specialise at that elite level so quickly, and let kids play other sports. So there's different opinions. But to answer your question, there's no names knocking around, but like, people have suggested someone like Brian Kerr, not maybe necessarily Brian Kerr himself, but someone like Brian Kerr. Curtis Fleming's name was pitched, I think, another journalist sort of put that forward. So that type of name has been mentioned, but they've said that there's non-Irish candidates too who have expressed interest.
And now Roddy Collins, don't know.
Not Roddy. No, I met Roddy today, actually.
Lovely.
Bizarrely, there was just on the way to the soccer, the Football Writers Association, the Soccer Writers Association had like a meeting, our first in-person meeting today in 2 years. Yeah. And I mean, the chances of Roddy Collins being in the same hotel where his meeting was taking place, that it ended up with Roddy addressing the room for 10 minutes, even though he's like not a member of the association. And he was actually suggesting he might have been working on a project with Paul Howard, who's obviously he's been on your show a couple of times. So I'm not sure what that's about, but I saw Roddy from a distance. He shouted at me and said, "Here's Mr. Football himself," as I walked into the room, which made everyone laugh. And I was just thinking, Roddy has a certain charisma. Like, one of my first ever jobs in journalism was ghostwriting Roddy's column in the Star Sunday.
No way!
So like I spent around 3 years. I still know Roddy's number off by heart. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I know you don't have mobile phone numbers. Like, when mobile phones started, you might occasionally be using landlines, so you'd memorize certain important numbers in your life. You might have access to like a landline phone, and you remember people's mobiles. And Roddy, I mean, I was not going to call it out now. That could be a disaster. Just to test the theory.
Tell everyone.
But I'm almost certain. I'm never going to check it, that I remember Roddy's number. So like, once a week, I'd have to ring Roddy and try. I mean, how the fuck do you try and like get Roddy Collins's voice right? You know what I mean? Like, I need to try and what would Roddy say in this scenario? But it was entertaining.
What a job! Like, Roddy's a mad thing.
Yeah. It was good to see him. He said there's always something going on with Roddy. He said he's involved with some big five-a-side tournament that's been launched soon. So there you go. I like Roddy. You know, he is what he is.
Is there a job for him in Irish football?
I don't know. Like, I mean, I wouldn't say I would have agreed with a lot of Roddy's opinions expressed in recent times. Like, I actually think I remember at some stage when I was doing Roddy's column back in the day saying, Roddy, like, you're having cracks at Stephen Kenny all the time here. Like, all the time. Is it because he went into Bowes after you? Oh, no, you know, like, no. But he still resists that, like, this is what it's about. But, I mean, I have my theories, you know. I have my theories on it that he's never really. I think Stephen Kenny maybe, like, Roddy is a person who had big ambitions. You know, when he got to Carlisle, that possibly the road he might have gone on, and I do think there's possibly there would be a strand of people probably within the game here who see Stephen Kenny getting the job that they might have aspired to one day, and thinking, why did it have to be? You know, why was it him? You know, and Roddy, I would say that to his face, to be fair. So I'm not even saying it sort of in a backhanded way. I'd love to see him back, though. I mean, I'd love to sort of see him pop up somewhere, but I don't know. I'm not sure. You'd have to ask him. Would he have the desire to go lower again than where he's gone in terms of the clubs where he's been at? You know, it's a slog, to be fair. Yeah. Would that desire be there? But I mean, I'd love it. I mean, Roddy and Pat Dolan and Darren McKeely and all these figures like that were on the scene when I sort of started working in it. You can't have enough of those guys. You just can't always don't have to always agree with them. But the fact that we're even talking about him shows that he captures the imagination in some way.
Absolutely. Rod Squad was absolutely must-watch television.
Yeah, like it was. I mean, it's big. I mean, like Roddy is just. I'm trying to think. Actually, the Rod Squad. Like I watched it, but it's so back in the memory that I'm trying to remember scenes from the Rod Squad. Am I remembering them, or am I remembering some discussions I had with Roddy myself? You know, because I seem to recall regular references to Louis Copeland. You know, there was definitely one day. I met him in the hotel, and he was just there with Vinnie Jones, you know, just in the lobby of somebody's. I just come down, and they were close, and like, you know, I think there was a sense of the Rod Squad that it was obviously the great thing about it was a camera sort of following Roddy around, you know, and his things that he says and does. But if you ever go and meet Roddy in a public setting, that's a bit what it's like sometimes too. It's like he is almost. He's like a character in a, you know, it's like a sort of a Larry David thing or something going on where like Roddy is sort of, you know, there and things happen around them. Like the sheer fact that, as I said, I hadn't seen him in ages and I just saw him like, he just started addressing a meeting randomly today, like, you know, for the first time. Like,
what was he saying?
He just comes in. I see, well, Mr. Football, as I am now, came in late just as he was finishing his speech, as he was walking out. I was walking in. But I don't know. I gather everyone got they got a 10-minute pep talk from Roddy, you know. So, I mean, listen, honestly, I you know, you need those characters. And like, to be honest, for me, when I was starting off, it was actually great fun every week, like just to be talking to Roddy, because I think that was around the time as well, if you remember. I think that was around the time he was at Dublin City.
Yeah.
And he went from Dublin City to Rovers, wasn't it? Was that the controversial thing before? Yeah, around the time. But that was around the time when he was signing like Carlton Palmer and Efanakoku. So I think I was brought up to meet them, actually. I think that was it. I got like exclusive access to meet Carlton Palmer and Efanakoku, I think, and particularly Palmer. I seem to recall Carlton Palmer being there, sort of wondering what he was doing here, you know.
And I was signed for Dublin City.
But sure, Roddy, like, he had his connect. Well, I mean, again, like, for all Roddy's sort of his front and his sort of, some would say it's spoof, you know, but for all, and I wouldn't say it. Like, this is my point. Like, he is well connected. Like, you know, Roddy would pick up the phone and he would genuinely have like long-standing contacts and friends, you know, across various strands of the game.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing through that network, he was able to get at some of those lads. I mean, I don't know what's, I suppose if you don't know anything about Ireland and you hear the Dublin City FC, you might think that this is like the premium team of Dublin that's looking for you, as opposed to. Yeah, exactly. I'm sponsored by Carol's. They might even know the Carol's gift shop, like if they've been in Dublin before, and they're thinking that this is the centre of the universe, as opposed to like a bag of jerseys out in Santry, But like that's what you might have assumed that it was, And Roddy is charismatic. I mean, I think Roddy, if you talk to Roddy and he tried to sell you something, you definitely end up thinking about it.
There's a podcast coming up, actually. The Rovers fan podcast, Tales from the East Stand, have an interview with Roddy Collins. So that will be interesting coming from, a Rovers fan perspective, because it's obviously going to be talking about his time at Rovers, which was quite controversial in some aspects. So that'll actually be very interesting.
That was a very talented and very social team that they had that year, wasn't it? I mean, there's no way they should have got relegated, but I know I know the Irish fell out of the place a bit too, during the year and stuff. But it was it looked like a team that you wouldn't trust them to win a league, but you want to be invited to their Christmas party. It definitely was that type of team. And that was the year they were in Daily Mount, wasn't it? So I was freelance at the time, so I would have covered a lot of their games, and they're often very good to watch, but.
It'd be interesting to see how much he spoofs about that season, because he's known a kind of known spoofer.
Well, I mean, but by the end of that podcast, Roddy might have convinced some people they qualified for Europe, until someone points out, no, the following season they were actually in the first division, But I'm sure when he was out in Malta or something, he might have told them he got them to Europe that year.
I used to interview him every week on Dublin City FM when he was the manager of Monaghan United. And
right. Yeah.
He used to love coming on. Do you know Declan Hughes, do you?
Yes, I do, yeah.
Declan used to ring him on a Monday afternoon, and Roddy'd be like, "Oh, Jesus, I'll do one for you, Decky, I'll do one for you." And he'd come on, and you'd be just having the crack with him,
Yeah, I know. As I said, as an early life experience in journalism, it was probably a really good one, to be honest. Because I ended up then I was on Off the Ball with him then, as it was, when the lads who are now second captains were off the ball. So we had a weekly League of Ireland slot then, which I think Roddy probably might have. Well, no, he didn't have to get onto it because I'd worked with them before, but. Me and Roddy used to sort of row on air quite regularly. We'd have our weekly slot, and they did some sort of theme tune music with various insults being hurled back and forth between myself and Roddy, which at the time was again was quite good for me probably to be sort of to get a bit of profile off the back of being the sort of the straight guy in comparison to sort of Roddy's sort of outlandish claim, and then I'd try and say, you can't say that, and that's always, that'd be the thing.
That didn't happen, Roddy.
Yeah, that's just not true, Roddy. This is unclear. Yeah.
Do you know what was crazy to me actually last week? The Anthony Barry leaving for Belgium. Now it wasn't crazy in terms of the fact that he accepted the job. Why wouldn't you accept the job? But it was a bizarre appointment in the first place. I thought in the sense that how did we get someone of Anthony Barry's caliber, and will we be able to replace him with somebody of his caliber?
Yeah, well, how they appointed him is basically, it was through the connection there was through Rory Higgins, who was on, who is Derry City manager now, but was on Kenny's coaching staff. And Rory Higgins and Anthony Barry were at Coventry together in the mid-2000s. And then when Rory Higgins did his early stage coaching badge, I think through the IFA up north, I think Barry was on the same course, and they sort of reconnected. And then obviously Barry's star was rising. So
never knew that.
When the vacancy popped up, when Damien Duff left, I think Higgins was able to say that there was a connection to Barry, and I think Kenny would have inquired about Anthony Barry too, and that's basically where it went. They had a meeting, and it was a coup to get him. Like, in hindsight, like at the time there was the I mean, it's only whatever that was, a year ago now. Like Anthony Who was a thing that a lot of people said. Why didn't he appoint someone we know? Like when actually they had recruited one of the best young coaches in Europe, and that's not hyperbole. Like that's how he's regarded. So I think what they did say yesterday is that it's probably raised the bar in terms of the type of appointment that they will go for now. I don't think you're going to see them go for, say, someone on their first coaching job, to replace them or something, some ex-player who isn't experienced in coaching. I think it wouldn't surprise me if they ended up going for someone who's, say, working for a club in the UK and it's another share job. I think that's probably what it might be.
Is there any names muted already? Because I know John.
No names muted. No, I don't want to throw them out there, but like I think nothing that I'd be writing about yet. So I probably shouldn't say it on a podcast. Like, what I mean? But I don't actually know. I just know that that's the profile they're looking at is lads
working for your own podcast, Dan.
Well, I mean, I'm not even sure if I'd give it to them, I wouldn't like to mean that, because that might involve telling Johnny Ward beforehand, in which case you basically told everyone in Dublin, so you can't do that. Definitely can't do that.
What was I going to say to you? In terms of the new season, there has been a lot of kind of to and fro with new signings and stuff like that. Do you know actually the Finn Harp signings? I think it's a New Zealand international.
Yeah.
There's
some Croatian fella as well.
Croatian, yeah. That's it. Yeah. How do these signings happen at all? How does Ollie Horgan get these signings like?
I have no idea. So I was talking to a guy who was with Finn Harps last year who knows the scene up there, and he was telling me like there's some fella from Croatia is after landing up and moved his wife and kids to Ballybofey, and I'm just sort of thinking of, the football world and like what I love about football, and it's why, above all sports, it's what I love about. I mean, I love the international aspect of it. Like I love the fact that you can go to any country and there will be a football community of sorts there. And I think what we've seen in recent years is that like Ireland has latched on to this and it has become a stop on the sort of life's journeys for a lot of these people. And like, there's Sligo signed a guy from New Zealand yesterday. We've had all, like, there's two Spanish lads over in Galway. I was chatting to someone about them today who are getting used to life over there. And I think it's brilliant. Like, I don't know what the hell the Croatian will think of it, in around 6 months' time. Like, when he's sort of, like, and you say, how does it happen? It's just, it's the same discussion you can have. The world has got a lot smaller with sort of online platforms. And I gather that there's even, like, certain apps being set up that clubs can pay for, where they put into it sort of like a dating app or something, like, what they're looking for, what age, what requirement. And like, it sort of creates options for them with that. And as a result, you sort of, not only, I think a couple of clubs are using some kind of service like that. Then you have a lot of agents that would be sort of putting players around the place. And like Sligo in particular, in recent years, has always had the tradition for doing that. But it is like, I'm always sort of fascinated by them, because like you have someone like Joseph Ndo, who like a twice African Cup of Nations winner, who came to Shells on a bit of a whim and is now living in the west of Ireland almost 20 years later. And you'll have other lads who'll be been and gone in 3 months going, what the hell was I doing there? And like Dundalk in recent years, like, signed a load of these lads. And in fairness, I'm not saying that it would have worked out anyway, but they did land in the middle of a pandemic, at the start of a pandemic. Like, there was this guy, Stefan Kolovic from Serbia, who moved over from Serbia to Ireland on his own, just as pretty much the pandemic hit, and spent like a couple of months, because there was this thing over, will the league start back or not? He didn't fly home, he couldn't fly home, and he spent like 3 months on his own in an apartment in Dundalk, and he's after landing in from wherever in Serbia, thinking, not sure about that. Like, 3
All
months in
those
Dundalk on your own.
all those signings that went to
Dundalk is hard for anyone.
all those signings that went to Dundalk that year, Dan, are they more or less cleared out now? The
Pretty much, yeah. I think so. I think they had to get, the club needed to get, if one of their players got a new club, you need to get an international clearance form comes to the club that they have to sign. So they know if any of them. So like Abibi, the keeper from Albania, Italy, who was there, he definitely hasn't got a club yet because they haven't got the release in. But they had this guy, Nathan Ottawa, who played in 2020. And then all of a sudden last week he got a club in Azerbaijan, and the dog got the word for that. Oh no, he's got a club. So I think most of them have been fixed up. The South Korean guy they signed because they couldn't get their first South Korean. So the owner was so pissed off at the FAI over their permit rules, he just decided to sign another South Korean with a very similar name, just so he could, like, some fucking game he was playing. He's gone back to a club in South Korea. The Latvian guy is fixed up back home. There's a few issues with Sonny Nattestad, the Faroese defender, because he tried to sign for a club in Norway, but he has a bit of history there involved with a sort of very sensitive case. So one or two of them still haven't got clubs elsewhere. They had a couple of guys from Harvard as well. They had they had these like guys being dropped in from the American colleges who just apparently were just arriving indiscriminately, sometimes even during like quarantine. It was like, what the hell is going on here? Like, the country's in lockdown, and there's some like well-heeled American who's after just knocking on the door saying, I'm here, and I think there was a couple of people around the club who were sort of tasked with like driving. They spent most of their life just driving American students around Dundalk who were never going to be remotely good enough to play for them. So much so that they got loaned to Athlone, the worst team in the country at the time. He said, well, you're not even going to play for us. So like, but under work permit rules, to get a work permit, I think they would have been on a minimum in some cases of like 600 quid a week. I think, or a certain amount. I think to get if you need a work permit to play in the country, there's a minimum wage that you get paid, which is a bit of a source of contention actually here at the moment, that you would have dressing rooms in Ireland where there's lads getting like 100, like at the smaller clubs, like 150 quid a week, to be professional, inverted commas, and yet lads that are in from countries where you need a work permit to come here, there's a minimum amount that they get paid. So I think some places only have copped onto this recently, that they realise that this lad on the work permit isn't that good, it's getting 4 times as much as me.
I never even knew that. That's mad. Your reporting throughout the P6 era was gas. Like that. Surely there's a book in that, Dan.
Yeah, like it's been said to me, all right, and it was spoken about, and I was up for the idea, and I just wonder, has the moment passed now a bit? I think, maybe it hasn't, but like I think there was a bit of interest around how it ended, and the fact that it probably ended by going back into local hands and a good news story was the best thing for the club, but it probably might not have been the best thing for like the story arc, if someone wanted to do like to craft a sort of a book around the whole thing, I think. But who knows? Like, I think it's one of those projects that it would take over your life to do it, and it would be a great thing to do it. But we'll see where they go in the next couple of years. But I'm not sure if some of the best stories will ever be told. That's part of the problem with it.
Well, what was the most obscure story where when you got it and you got it verified, you were kind of going, what the fuck?
Oh God! Now you put me on the spot here.
My favourite was wanting Gary Rogers to take the corners. Wasn't that one?
That was definitely, that was true. Well, I think there was this thing where that because Bill Holtsizer, the chairman, like, he hadn't watched, I think, a game of football till he was 50 or thereabouts, but he was big into ice hockey. So one of the things was, if you remember, and of course you would, because you were there, the 2019 Cup final, where what was it? Remember, Michael Duffy got that amazing goal in the 95th minute.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think, did Rovers score a very late goal? Was the Rovers goal like in the 89th minute or something?
Yeah, it
like
was
that?
Aaron McInniff
Penalty, right? Okay. And from the tip off, all the Dundalk players, just Brian Garton and then everyone, just like the centre half. I just remember Garton in particular being a centre half. That they all lined up on the halfway line. They played the ball back to the keeper, and then they just pumped the ball into the box, because this is, we've only got whatever a minute left here, lads. And then it worked, right? It worked that Michael Duffy scored off a second ball eventually, and Bill Hulsizer was at this game, and he just decided. He went in and said to someone with a straight face, he was like, I've watched that goal there. Like, is there not some special code word that we could use, right? That some player could shout it during a game, and at that point, everyone would just charge, like a sort of a Braveheart style scenario, where like someone would shout blue, and all of a sudden everyone just like fucks off. Like everyone, like the defenders and everyone just charges forward. To beyond the halfway line, and just that's it. Like that comes to mind because of, like you mentioned, the Gary Rogers taking corners, but absurd. I mean, I'm just trying to think. Like I collected a lot of body of stuff that never quite was used. But I mean, the whole thing, like during COVID, where he wanted that he thought that to get around the COVID regulations around playing a friendly against Celtic, that like the whole squad could quarantine in the club's training centre in Dundalk, which is a it's not a place you want to be living for like 2 weeks, whatever it was, 10, 14 days at the time. And the idea like you would have these reasonably highly paid like professionals in bunk beds in like an Oriel Park living for like 10 days, and they would think it was normal. Around that time, I think he was also demanding that, because he was a big Trump man, you see, Bill. So I think someone at the club was directly tasked with ringing Micheál Martin directly. And I'm not even sure if this came directly from Bill, actually. It might have come from someone else, but like they were told, you need to ring Micheál Martin and tell him that he's got COVID wrong. A ring. It was Micheál Martin at the time. So some fella at Dundalk has sort of been told, any chance you could just ring the Taoiseach and say, this whole restriction thing, the whole. Have you considered that maybe we should do something completely different on this, like in general, and we might then we can go and play Celtic, around this time.
Oh, God.
But there's a lot of other stuff you would have needed lawyers to go over to get through. That's not even the half of it. I think to be honest, you mentioned the book thing. I'd say there's probably some people who were there for all of it that they could, if they really wanted it, they could. I did say to some people at the time, it probably would have helped me out with stuff and information. And I remember saying to them, I hope you're keeping a diary on some of this stuff, because it would be amazing. I feel like the documentary, it was happening in production at the time, and they could have done something with it. But anyway, who knows? Danny, it might appear someday.
Danny here is a Bohemians fan in Pantoland, just to annoy me. He's not he's not really League of Ireland as such. He just tries to get onto the Dublin Derby bandwagon when it doesn't go my way. Isn't that right, Dan?
Oh, well, that's an outrageous accusation you're throwing my way, Graham. I'm a diehard Bows fan.
Yeah, he's got a Bob Marley jersey in the background there, sure.
Yeah.
Like,
1 or 2 years ago.
Yeah.
On Etsy.
On Etsy. They're Bows. Speaking of Bows, they have another rebuild to do for the season. How do you see? Well, generally speaking, in terms of the new season ahead, obviously people will start seeing who outright bettings are going to be in terms of who's going to win it, top scorer and stuff like that. How do you see it? Do you think it's going to be a competitive season this season?
Um, I think, if to be fair, if things clicked for Rovers, like Shamrock Rovers, I think they probably should still be a bit ahead. Like, yeah, the Bows thing, like they lose players a lot, like it consistently happens, and they have to rebuild. And I've sort of a bit of sympathy for Keatlong on that. Um, you know, they have a good track record for, I think, probably, taking players at a particular point, improving them, or certainly, bringing them, giving them a better platform. And then they lose them, and that's difficult. I'm not sure. Like, I think Bows probably, was it the year before last? Like, they were probably the second best team, and
Yeah.
there was a couple of derbies where you were watching them thinking, like, Bows could really, if they could sort of keep this together, they could push on. But that hasn't happened, and I think they wouldn't be in my sort of projected top three, if you know what I'm saying. I think, like, I would have thought, like, Derry, with the players they've brought in, and the potential it has to ignite up there, I would have thought they'd be pretty strong. And I still think St. Pat's, they were second last year. They have signed well. I was chatting to Owen Doyle during the week for a piece for the weekend, and they brought in someone like him straight from League One. So I think for Bows, it's going to be harder for them. But I do think, like, probably like Rovers, as much as I think they should win the league, there's definitely more excuses for them dropping points. Like, I do feel like the level might come up a bit this year of some teams. I'm not sure how strong the leagues they've won have actually been, to be honest, as much as that would wind people up. But, like, I think they haven't had to work too hard really to win them. I think, like, sorry, that's wrong. They had to work hard to win them, but the fact that Dundalk completely capitulated, like, they were trying to, like, take Dundalk off the pedestal, and then Dundalk took themselves off the pedestal. So, I think Rovers will probably face a more sustained challenge this year. But I sort of have a theory that they probably had another gear to go to, and maybe that challenge, particularly with Jack Byrne coming back, might actually be the one that pushes them on a bit too. But I'm really looking forward to it.
I had felt the two seasons we won the league, I agree with you to a certain extent, in terms of I always felt we were only probably in third gear. Always felt like there was 2 gears to go, and never quite got there, perhaps because of the opposition. In some respects. So yeah, I mean, this season, like, I think Shells have strengthened very well, and everyone will have their eyes on Shells, seeing how Duff will get on there as well. But
Yeah,
I do think it'll be more competitive, and Rovers might have to step up to 4th and 5th gear, and hopefully that will be bringing the 3 in a row.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's definitely, I think, Europe, obviously. And I sort of wonder, even last year, I didn't. They played very well, Rovers, at home to Bratislava, but I'm not sure that I think in some of their European games, while some of the other Irish clubs in Europe maybe raised their game in Europe, I think maybe with Rovers, it showed that I don't know, maybe they got away with things at home at times because it was too comfortable for them some weeks, and, like, they were really pressed and tested by good sides. Like, in fairness, the team they went down to were good. But I just wonder if Rovers were a little bit more, if they'd been really pressed a little bit more often week to week, might they have been a bit sharper in those European games? And I think learning some of those lessons will be interesting. I think they were almost a bit cavalier away, a bit too open, because they can sort of recover and get away with some of these things at home. They wouldn't be punished as clinically, whereas in Europe they probably were. And I'll be interested to see them in Europe this year and what they've sort of learned from that.
It looks like they're seeded for the Champions League as we're speaking.
I saw that as in running. Like, that season, I mean, like, you don't want to spend too much time in your life looking at seeding coefficients. But I tell you, I've spent far too much time doing that.
I still don't understand it.
Well, just basically, right, if you don't need to understand it, just Google, like, Bert Cassie's, this guy in Holland who seems to have, like, a program that he's set up over years that like he still has that very basic, the first ever font that existed on the internet, like all the site, like that little one that you would have typed your first letter out on a typewriter or something. Like that's his
Times New
like
Roman.
It's more like Times Old Roman. Like, do you know what I mean? Like it's sort of like it's definitely like the most basic font, and he has this like he has this sort of like program, but the night after like a round of like European games where there's like hundreds of games around Europe, like basically that night he has the seeding implications all up. He must have set up a program, but anyway, you would look at his projections, and then a separate side for projects who wins the league winners around Europe and stuff. And I thought Rovers were a certainty not to be seeded, but basically it seems like there's a lot of surprise league winners around Europe at the moment, or a couple of surprise league winners. So teams who, because they haven't been in Europe that much, are ranked lower than Rovers. So if Rovers are seeded in that first round, that can change. That can change a lot of things, But at the same time, I looked at, I think is it Lech Poznan, I think are top of the table in Poland, like a way better league. But because they haven't been in Europe that much, they're seeded lower than Rovers. So you could be seeded and play Lech Poznan, which would be a worse draw than you could get, on the other side of it. So let's not think too far ahead about it. Like the Polish league has got months left to go, but yeah.
You just get giddy when we're actually allowed travel now to away matches, calling the Champions League fixtures, which is going to be great.
Well, this is fingers crossed. This actually will be the thing, and like that's the thing. The last couple of years, like I haven't been on a League of Ireland European trip. I got to 3 of the Ireland games in the autumn, but didn't do any of the club matches. And even the year Dundalk were in the group stages again. They're playing Arsenal and Rapid Vienna and doing these games off the telly at home, and the sitting room was just it's miserable.
That ground in Luxembourg was great, wasn't it?
Yeah, the little sort of stadium. When I say little, I mean it was little because you were there. You were there, weren't you? Of course, weren't you? Yeah, like it was. It was like a 9,000 seater stadium, wasn't it? But it was brilliant. Mm. Now, I think they spent a lot of money on it. Like there was a lot of money sort of spent on it, and people say, "Well, this is a model for what we should have." Like it's almost a really highbrow version of it. But yeah, I mean, but there was sort of royalty there, wasn't there? Like Infantino was at that game as well too.
Yeah,
the big man. Luxembourg. I mean, I don't know what you thought about Luxembourg. I mean, I have to say, like in all the countries I've been to in Europe, it was probably the most dull I've been to in terms of there wasn't a huge amount going on.
Everything was closed, wasn't it?
Everything was closed, and it's always a bad sign when one of the lads who was going over talked to a friend and lived in Luxembourg and said, "I'm going to Luxembourg for the weekend." That whole thing of anywhere you'd recommend, any restaurants or bars or something you'd recommend, or where do you think I should go? And the response was, France, and that was the answer. So like, I think the whole point was that like loads of people in Luxembourg just work there Monday to Friday. It's basically like the IFSC, but it's a country, and, everyone gets out of there for the weekend to go to like France or somewhere with a bit more life going on. But the stadium was nice.
The wheelchair section was sensational. Like
you see that I'd say every detail was looked after, but and that is good to hear. That is good to hear.
A lot to aspire to in our stadiums. You're kind of looking at it with jealousy, and I know you're saying it's the higher kind of what they spend on it, but you're kind of looking at it when you're in the stadium. You're kind of going, "What is stopping Air League from developing a stadium like this?" Like,
actually, I mean, it's sort of the same. Like, in terms of wheelchair sections, then, like, because I was actually I was at a meeting today ranting about like the stadiums that don't have Wi-Fi, because that's what affects me in my world. Like, you go to a sort of a press box, and I go to any country in the world, and it's normal that you go in and you'd ask someone, what's the Wi-Fi code? And if there wasn't one, you'd be like, this is really weird. Yet in Ireland, you go to a stadium and you do that, and everyone's like, well, of course there's no Wi-Fi here. And like, yeah, of course there's no. Why did I even ask? And it's like, you're conditioned to this sort of way of thinking. It's like, actually, this is a deplorable way of thinking. Yeah. But actually, like the wheelchair sections, I'm guessing Tala is good.
Tala's good. Turner's Cross is brilliant.
Turner's Cross, I was going to say, I feel like I've seen one. Sligo, is that all right? Or
Sligo, their away section, like,
Oh
They
yeah,
let you
yeah,
sit anywhere, so I'd prefer to be in with the away crowd, and you kind of just make
yeah.
up your own kind of slot there. They're very accommodating though. You can either kind of go behind the goal in the tarmac or at the side with the away fans. So look, if they have a wheelchair section in the home section, but who wants to sit in the home
Yeah.
section?
Well,
Um,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Dundalk, you're on the sideline, which you can't really complain about. The only complaint, I suppose, is there's no roof.
Yeah.
If the elements, Derry, I haven't made to Derry. I'm going to Derry on February 25th. They're all really good. Longford's very good. Athlone is good. Pats is very good. Pats, you're integrated into the stand. The only thing is, you know where the toilets are in Pats, the away toilet.
Yes. Yeah.
You can't see the corner flag because the pole is there and then the building
Oh
is
yeah.
there, which is like it's grand. Like Shells is
Yeah.
good. You're just sitting behind the goal. Like they can all the day amount isn't great now, to be honest. Because you can't really see over the sponsorship horde. And you're in
Yeah.
because there's more of a demand for bows now. Back about 10 or so years ago, there'd be a handful of Rovers fans and wheelchair user Rovers fans that would be in Block A, but now it's all Bows fans. So you're kind of, do you want to sit with Bows fans for those matches? You know that
Would
way.
you not go in with Danny? No, like would you not just mix it up?
Danny wouldn't know where Dalymount Park is.
Well, you should lay the gauntlet down to him. Like you should actually just say, listen, I've decided we should go to the game together. But listen, you can expose this myth for what it is.
Yeah.
You can really lay it on thick and say, I'm really looking forward to this. I think it's something we should do.
Exactly, Danny. We'll do it this season, will we?
I'm more than happy to do an outside broadcast from Dalymount with you, Graham.
No way.
I'll take
I got stick there the last time I was there. They were saying your podcast is fucking shite, so I left it.
There you go. See, it's because I wasn't in the crowd, so they felt to get.
Yeah. They didn't know you.
Yeah.
What will be the latest there actually with the Dalymount redevelopment and talk? Like, I would love to see Talca Park saved. Personally speaking, the history in that ground, I love going to that ground. Even when Rovers played there, I just loved it. Is there a chance? Do we have a chance? Because I seen the Save Talca Park campaign, and it reads very attractively, but the people that make the decisions, I don't know if they'll go there.
It's really like the Save Talca Park campaign has really taken off, and I think it's going to get bigger. I'm a bit conflicted around it. Of course, I think it's absolutely insane that the idea would exist that even in North Dublin where I live now, it's completely justifiable to have two major stadiums. I just have this little hope that I don't know if the best compromise is ending up with two crappy stadiums too. Like I saw a picture the other day of, again, they're taking the seats out. I think is it behind the goal in Talca Park. I think another section, another ground where there's a committed section that you can't go into. It just seems like they're closing sections of stadiums.
Looks terrible on the telly, won't it?
Yeah, and so I'm well up for Talca Park being saved. It should. I just hope that it doesn't end up in some situation where, well, you can have Talca Park, but now we're not doing Dalymount. And that can't be the way that this plays out. But I think Dalymount has to be done because, Dalymount is a hugely historical place in the context of Irish football. And the idea of doing a new Dalymount, I think, is an excellent one. But at the same time, I completely understand why Shells are sort of pissed off with the whole situation. And I'd love to see Talca Park being saved in a better format. But knowing you're looking at, you say that that's in theory what you want, but in practice, you live in Ireland, you know that we are a country of half finished or never started stadiums. So the idea that we could get two of them done seems fanciful. Yeah. So I just hope that the price of saving Talca isn't screwing something else. And I know that's not their goal. They have their own history, and I think maybe Shells are getting a bit of a rebirth at the moment that will probably stress why they need their own identity. But as I said, I just hope that things have been surrendered into the hands of sort of political actors by mistakes made over the years. And I'm not sure if I trust them to all sort it all out in a way that gives us what we want at the end, which is good facilities in this area.
There's an easy answer for them. Utilise the River Tolga, stick whitewater rafting on it, and there'll be money flowing into them from everywhere.
Listen, this is what we can do. I mean, like they could actually like do some kind of hybrid stadium where, like, at full time they rotate the pitch out, and it just like the water comes from beneath it, or they have a sort of some kind of 50-meter swimming pool exists below it that they rotate it like.
Owen Keegan is frantically taking notes right now and just saying, "Yes, lad, genius."
Multi-purpose.
The redeveloped Daily Mount, Dan, is that only going to be 5,000 or 6,000?
Yeah, so they're saying. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not sort of saying that is the truth. That is the latest plan.
Considering their popularity and demand in the recent years, that seems pretty low. Like,
yeah, like I'm not saying that is the plan, and I know that it's hugely expensive, the whole thing, and I know that has raised some eyebrows. But again, I think the argument is just the price of getting stuff done. I suppose anyone who's worked in construction, had a construction project, a house or some kind of thing, you see that the costs just seem to be extraordinarily high, and it seems that, I suppose, if you're doing a project in partnership with a council, I suppose they have to pay the going rate in a number of areas, even if it appears to be a very inflated rate. And I don't understand it, but then I don't have the head for this to be able to talk with authority about what it should cost. It just does appear that in other countries, stadiums of that size cost less, but it feels like with this day. But it's like, what's this, the Metro Link or whatever, Metro North, which is like, I mean, when is that ever
never happened
to come to pass? Like, there's children who haven't been born yet, who will die of natural causes before that's done. You know what I mean? Yeah, so like that's sort of like that's where we are. It feels like with that project.
We've an awful habit of making a balls of building things. Children's Hospital comes to mind as well, and the amount that's paid for that.
It's just so slow. Like that's the thing as well. And football has been a classic. It's a great example of that, but like a terrible example.
I'm looking forward to seeing you in the Bertie Bowl, lads. That's all I'll say on that.
Yeah. Before we let you go there, just Ireland and Stephen Kenny. I assume the contract is going to be tied up before the internationals in March.
Yeah, it will be. Yeah, no, it will be. I mean, I've never doubted that the contract will be done, but again, it's just taking a little bit longer, maybe, to iron it out. But yeah, that there's no grey area around him staying or anything like that.
No, and do you think Festi Ebisola will be in the March squad?
Oh, it's a good question. I mean, he's flying with Derby at the moment, and he's someone I actually would have watched him play for the Irish underage team a couple of years, and he was always athletically, he was always exceptionally quick. But he just seems to have added another level. I wouldn't be so sure though. Like I think he's got I think Kenny's one of his big things is to go towards quite a settled squad, and I think there's always a clamour for a young guy. Like earlier in the season, it was Gavin Kilkenny, and now he's not playing for Bournemouth because he has to be in the squad. I think sometimes people are a little bit too hasty to jump for it, but I think what I would say is that like Festi's attributes, I think, would appeal to Kenny, because I think a big problem with the team in his first year or so in charge was it was actually quite slow, and that's why Ogbene has been a revelation, because he's given them something different that they didn't have. So I think he'd be considered, but I wouldn't be 100% convinced. But in the summer they have these 4 games, which is going to be a big camp, and they'd probably have to call up a big squad for that. So maybe I could be wrong. Like you could spring him in there, but if everyone else is fit, maybe not.
And if he's going to bring Jason Knight in for Derby, I think it'd be mad to overlook Abisoli, because they played the same amount of games, and as you said, the speed of Festi, like he more or less always beats their fullback. Anytime I've watched him, he's created.
Yeah, no,
he's got.
No, there's a shout. There's a shout for it. Yeah. Like I suppose it's a question of where does he play though? Like, does he see him as a right-sided wing back? ahead of Doherty?
Yeah.
Probably not, to be honest. You know, like, would he call him up? Maybe, but would he benefit more from playing a few games with 21s in that time? I think you could argue in the last couple of camps that there have been times when lads have been in the senior squad who aren't going to play that the 21s might have needed them. And I think calling them into the senior too quickly can be there can be two sides to that.
Detrimental to the 21s. Listen, Dan, thanks so much for your time. I look forward to the League of Ireland podcast, League of Ireland Central returning. And the halfway line newsletter, is that back?
That's starting back on Friday week. Yeah, it's free to subscribe for it. You know, I think people are afraid of paywalls, whatever. But this is free. It just like cleverly then puts in a load of pieces that are behind the paywall to try and like tempt people towards them. It's like, come on, you've got this far. You want to read this.
If anyone signs up, just be careful as well, because the first two always end up in the junk box. So
yeah, it's very important. You can always, if you sign up and you have any issues, get on to me on Twitter, because I can sort it out.
Deadly. Dan, thanks so much for your time. All right, and
thank you, Dan.
Enjoy the season. And
good to chat, lads. Yeah, I'll see you in Daily Man for your big outing. Yeah, I look forward to it.
Absolutely, big day. You'll see me in the Bob Marley jersey. Don't worry. I contributed absolutely nothing to that podcast, but you know what? I'm perfectly fine with that, because you and Dan, you took it away, and I
flew by as well. Like, I
enjoyed listening to it. I was
just listening,
like,
and
I was like an audience member for that podcast. It was great.
But if you're that way inclined to support League of Ireland, I think Dan's podcast with Johnny Ward is excellent, and they always have excellent guests and excellent insight and stuff like that. So League of Ireland Central podcast is back next week, so everyone hit subscribe to that, because it's a good one.
Indeed, yeah, absolutely. And check out the Independent as well. That's buy newspapers. Buy journalism's important, including sports journalism. So support it, because if there wasn't good journalism, we'd be left with the likes of Gript and those lunatics. So, you know, or Boris Johnson would still be a journalist, which is even more fucking terrifying.
Oh, Jesus wept.
But Graham, good, well done. You navigated that podcast with Dan beautifully. I'm very proud to have just sat by idly, and hope you didn't ask me anything, because I wouldn't have had a clue what to say.
Well, we talked about so much food in the intro that an hour later I'm still starving. And you still haven't had your crisps sandwich, so we will head off. Where can anyone listen to us, Dan?
You can get us online at WTSpod.com, or you can check us out on Spotify. Free, by the way, lads. Just hit subscribe and all our episodes come to you directly on your mobile device. You can get us on Apple Podcasts, you can get us on Stitcher, you can get us on Podbean, Podcast Addict, Podcast Republic, anywhere and everywhere that podcasts are available, including Amazon, and asking Alexa and asking Google and all those kind of things. Just subscribe to WTS Pod. We're there waiting for you. I'm at Danjo Murray on the social medias. He is at Merrigan Mania on the social medias. This has been WTS for this week.
Until next time, everybody, clear eyes,
full hearts,
and lose. Too sweet.